Is LSU making progress with some major 2026 in-state targets? We've got an update. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you for that. A conversation we're looking forward to having a little bit delayed, but glad to bring it to you every week. We talk with Shea Dixon from On 3, the Bengal Tiger. And this week, that convo got a smidge delayed because of Super Bowl, media, Radio Row, all that sort of stuff as well. But of course, we had our convo with Shea about Junior Day, which was last weekend. And it was a massive one, not just for LSU's 2026 pursuits, but also the 2027 pursuits. In this episode, we also get an update from Shea Dixon on Emile Picarella, the reaction from Shea on Emile Picarella, the quarterback that LSU signed this week as a preferred walk-on, and the biggest riser among the 2025 signees. You'll hear all that. But let us begin with Junior Day. This is a massive event where members of the class of 2026, okay, so this is high school juniors, okay, high school juniors that are going into their senior season next year, the next signing class, were on campus. And I asked Shea, and this was last weekend, it was a giant visitor list. I gave you my takeaways from Junior Day. And if you want to compare my takeaways with Shea's, you could certainly do that. If you're an everydayer, thank you for that. You can go listen to the episode where I talked about my takeaways from Junior Day. But we started with Shea giving a reaction, his biggest takeaway to Junior Day and the guys that were on campus.
You know, I think the biggest thing for me is twofold. One, when you look at this current 2026 class in Louisiana, and we've talked about the local guys like Lamar Brown at U High, a 5-star, Blaine Bradford at Catholic, a 5-star, and the state, all of the top 10, all of whom have been offered by LSU before this past weekend, are all top on 300 prospects. So 5-star, 4-stars, very highly regarded at all these positions. So we knew Louisiana would be deep, but to already have commits from about half the group, I think is a pretty big deal. And you're looking at receivers they took early that went on to be all-state. Kenny Darby led the state in receiving. Ja'Kai Anderson out of McDonough 35, who's had an offer since his sophomore year, was an all-state selection. And you're closing in on a guy like Jabari Mack, who was there this past weekend out of Destrehan, who is a top 50 prospect. Obviously, they have a pretty high hit rate at Destrehan of getting guys to LSU, and that would be a 1-2-3 punch at receiver just in Louisiana that I think Matt lines up with when people say, oh, well, Louisiana is synonymous with turning out these future pros at the position. They're talking about guys like this. So I just thought that getting Bradford, Brown, all those other guys back to campus was big.
And, of course, Richard Anderson, who's committed, was on campus. Aiden Hall, who's committed, was on campus. That's a giant part. But you heard him talk about guys like Jabari Mack, Kenny Darby, top on 300 players. Jabari Mack is the number 82 player nationally. Kenny Darby, who says he has shut down his recruitment. He's out of Airline in Bossier. Number 256 nationally. A couple of receivers where you've got Darby committed. You're hoping to get Jabari Mack, committed. Yes, I mean, they're next. That's the next among the crop of great receivers from Louisiana. I'm not trying to say they'll be Jarvis Odell, Jefferson Chase, any of those guys, but you don't necessarily have to be guys that become all pros in the NFL to be great college receivers. Terrace Marshall was a highly regarded guy that became a great receiver, who became a professional receiver. Even a guy like Russell Gage, who was a lightly recruited guy, became a great LSU receiver and spent nearly a decade in the NFL. So those guys are everywhere. But 2026 prospects were just a part of Junior Day, because 2027 became a massive storyline as well. And I understand that if you're not a recruiting guy, this isn't something that lands, but I want you to understand that even if you're a casual recruiting observer, but a big-time LSU fan, this is going to make sense. Here was Shea talking about, because there were some 2027 prospects that were invited to Junior Day and some big names attended.
They went into the weekend with the 2027 class, which is Elijah Haven, for instance, Dunham's quarterback. Only 3 guys who were sophomores had been offered in Louisiana. on Saturday, Matt, in the span of a few hours, Frank Wilson and Brian Kelly doubled that. They offered 3 more guys. Hamilton Christian, in fact, Jamin Vitale Jr., or Vital Jr., that's their first ever LSU offer to anyone in Hamilton Christian's program over in Lake Charles. So
yeah, I was about to ask, where is that, Shea? I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, Lake Charles.
Okay.
And then obviously maybe the most notable kind of future offer went out to a local kid.
Say it.
And Jaden Miles.
Hey, Cali High.
That's where it goes. So, Matt.
That's where he goes.
Let's take off the glasses here. Are you surprised that Frank Wilson offered him after his sophomore season and what you saw?
No, he's a 6'2", 200-pound sophomore running back. I mean, it's easy to see the projectable.
When I posted his photo of him and Frank, it might have been, or BK, to our message board on the Bengal Tiger, that was everyone's response. Was, I believe the 6'2", that's a no-brainer offer right there. They just signed 2 top 10 running backs out of Louisiana. Now you offer one that looks pretty promising for the future. But the one thing that did come out of the weekend from the 2026 class, like I said, they've been on those guys for so long, was that over in Franklin Parish, Desirian Ellis got an offer, and he was an all-state quarterback, but he's an athlete. He did everything for him, throws it, runs it. But Corey Raymond was the one who makes the offer. So early on, Corey's not handing out a bunch of offers. I think we can at least identify one guy in this kind of next wave of recruiting as we get to know the fan base gets to know these in-state prospects. As Franklin Parish has got a corner that clearly, or a DB, I should say, that Corey's got an eye on and made an offer to.
We'll get right back to the video. My pleasure. If Corey Raymond is offering prospects for the 2027 class, then I'm interested. Now, keep in mind that as of now, On3 only has a ranking for 4 players in Louisiana for 2027. Now, you heard Shea mention Elijah Haven, who's the number 1 quarterback in the country for 2027. Ahmad Hudson, who we previously talked about, was on campus for Junior Day, by the way, on campus for Junior Day, and is the number 1 tight end in the country for 2027. Malachi Ziegler, quarterback out of Benton, is the number 32 overall prospect. And then Braylon Calais out of Cecilia, listed as an athlete. He is the number 39 player in the country for 2027, according to On3. So someone like Jaden Miles, the running back who we talked about from Catholic High there, and a mid-joke. And by the way, if you're watching, not listening, I am wearing a Catholic High shirt. Proud alum. So you're not going to have grades or star ratings or a lot of rankings on a lot of these players yet. It's still so early in their recruitment, but LSU is identifying players they want in their 2027 class, and they're dishing out those offers to be early in that process. And again, I will repeat what I say very often about Catholic High. And there's a lot of people who listen to my radio show who tire of me yelling Catholic High, and that's okay. And I do it primarily for 2 reasons. Number 1, Catholic High people love it. Number 2, most everybody else hates it. But I will remind you the importance of LSU building a pipeline from Hearthstone Drive to Dalrymple. That's from Catholic to LSU, because Catholic High has become a massive feeder. It's always pumped talent to LSU, but it is in the last decade for certain. It's ratcheted up and ramped up that sort of feeders in all sports. We could talk about the football players from Darius Geis and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Emory Jones, and obviously Shelton Sampson was a highly regarded receiver when he signed with LSU. Didn't work out at LSU. Jacob Bradford in this most recent class signed. Everyone, and then the 2 prospects Shea just mentioned, Blaine Bradford, who's the number 1 safety in America in the class of 2026, and then Jade Miles, who's one of the top running backs already for 2027. Look, the point is LSU's coaches need to build a path. They need to wear out the concrete, the asphalt from football ops to Catholic High School to make sure they're in on all those guys. So little update from Shea. We'll keep you posted. 2 other things I want to talk about here in this bonus coverage of Locked on LSU. We will get an update on Emile Picarella, the quarterback. I'll get Shea's opinion on Emile Picarella, the quarterback from U-High that LSU signed. And then the highest riser among LSU's 2025 signees in the final on 300. You'll hear how that happened from Shea as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. If you're looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto Plus. Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. So I will tell you, that was part of the script they just gave us, I will tell you that before I ever started with Locked On, I was buying Factor meals. I am a meal prep service guy, and I have tried darn near all of them. You name them, I've tried them. Some that you've heard of, some you might not have heard of. And the one I'd most recently been subscribed to went out of business, so I needed another one. I found Factor, bought it, and this is, I will tell you, by far, the best tasting, highest quality of heat and eat meal prep services that I have ever subscribed to. I love Factor. I'll be a subscriber for as long. And this is I don't get paid by Factor for doing I was a subscriber before. I pay for Factor meals. They're fantastic. I could not recommend it more highly. I place my order each week. It's on a recurring system. You can do a chef's choice if you want. They're fantastic. They get delivered every Monday. I have my meals for the week. I have it on auto draft. It could not be easier, and the meals are fantastic. You just slit the film on the top, you pop it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and you're done. It tastes great. So Factor, give it a try if you're interested in saving time and money. Eat Smart. This is the part I have to read. Eat Smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off. That's 50 off. So, and use the code LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. I may try to use this. That's Locked On College 50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into the same game parlay. So use FanDuel. I love the live betting feature. It really is awesome. One thing that I love to do is, let's say hypothetically there's a basketball line, and let's say it's 2, and the underdog maybe makes a nice run early. The line drops. You get better value. You can live bet it within the first 4 minutes or whatever you want. There's always great value if you're in-game betting, if you're into that sort of thing, and FanDuel allows you to do that. So right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. A couple more from Shea Dixon of On3, the Bengal Tiger. And this week, we learned that Emile Picarella, a quarterback locally from University Lab in Baton Rouge, U High, right there on the LSU campus, will join LSU as a preferred walk-on. I asked Shea Dixon from On3, the Bengal Tiger, how this all came about.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where Ole Miss, others had been involved over the past year, and then I think you looked at some of the in-state schools and weighed his options, and I haven't heard from him, but I've talked to others that he feels, hey, look, I want to come to LSU. I want to be a Tiger. I'll take a PWO over some smaller offers and kind of see where it takes me. And they'll take another arm in the quarterback room right now. So with signing day, tomorrow? Yeah, I guess I'm sure U High will have some sort of ceremony, but he'll be on as a PWO and add one more to the quarterback room who is a familiar face. And I mean, we've got him listed 6'2", 210. Anyone who's from Baton Rouge has seen him play. So I think it's one of those where Joe Sloan gives the green light right away if he's in the spot where he says, hey, look, I'm willing to come on board as a PWO.
So I did have an episode earlier in the week, and if you're an everydayer, thank you for that. You probably caught it, but about Emile Picarella. And, it is my belief that this is not a guy that is your common garden variety PWO. This isn't a guy that was a no-star. This isn't a guy that, was a no-star that just loved the Tigers and had an opportunity to stay home and be a scout team guy. Emile Picarella at one point was a top 10 prospect at quarterback in the country for 2025. Now, that was early in his high school career. He spent 2 years in the state of Mississippi, and then afterwards transferred. His parents both are LSU alums, and so he transferred, ended up at U High in Baton Rouge. Now, he's 6'2", 200 pounds. And he didn't end up a top 10 prospect in the country, but he ended up the 40th best quarterback in the country. But still a guy that has ability, that has a lot of experience as a starter at the high school ranks, and is a guy that could, with time, continue to develop. The other thing that's interesting about Emile Picarella is he's kind of a product of the portal and what we're seeing in this era. Let me give you an example. So a lot of teams maybe are choosing, instead of taking a high school 3-star, like a G5 program. I'll give you an exact example. Like look at ULL. Instead of maybe taking a G5 quarterback, they had the opportunity to take Walker Howard as a transfer. Walker Howard was a 5-star who played for 2 seasons for a season at LSU, then 2 at Ole Miss. It's 3 years in the SEC as a backup. But now, so you're ULL, you have the opportunity to get a guy entering his 4th year in college who is a highly regarded guy, spent 3 years in the SEC, or in a high school signee that's a 3-star, which is better for your team right now. It's pretty obvious. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit, where a guy like Picarella is looking around going, well, do I go to get on the field at a lower classification, maybe FCS Division II, JUCO, whatever it may be, and then after a year or two jump back into the Power 5 or Power 4, or do you just walk on at LSU and try to grow through that system? So just something to file away there with Emile Picarella joining LSU. That was Shea Dixon's reaction to it. The one other thing that I found interesting that we talked about with Shea was Taron Francis. Now, Taron Francis, when the final on 300 came out, Taron Francis was a prospect who was ranked in the 200s nationally. And the final on 300 came out, and in the composite, he is, by on 3, the number 90 overall player in America. I mean, he went up over 100 spots in the final on 300. Now, in the composite, he's number 139 nationally. Okay, the 19th best receiver, 5th best player in Louisiana. That's from the composite. That's when you combine on 3, 24/7, ESPN rivals. You combine them, that gives you the composite. But on 3, which is the final on 300, they ranked him 90th overall. So a massive leap for the wide receiver out of Edna Carr. Here is Shea Dixon on how Taron Francis took that big of a leap.
A really good senior year. And look, Carr is obviously went back to the Dome, and they've got talent galore. But even when you watched him over the summer at camp and the rankings team came down and they watched him as well, it was one of those things where it was like, all right, we want to watch his senior year because he looks like a top 300 guy, but maybe expect him to take over a little more. And I feel like they call him man-child. I feel like he just turns it on. And it's like when the lights come on, he's on. And he had a great senior year. And that was one whenever I got the call from the rankings team, and they said, hey, look, this is some moves we're making. And I said, whoa, back up there, how far are y'all moving Taron Francis stuff? And they said, hey, look, we watch all the receivers out there across the country. And senior year-wise, coupled just with his athleticism, Louisiana guy coming out of Carr, and they said he's a top 100 prospect. So good on him. Another guy who was LSWA All-State. So they signed a bunch of them, and they'll take it.
Here it is. I'm looking at the biggest risers in the final on 300. Taron Francis went from number 212 to what this said is number 89 nationally. The biggest riser was edge Hayden Lowe, who signed with Miami. He went from 284 to 27. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There were 10 players that went from that moved into the top 100 from outside of the top 100, had big rise. But the biggest risers, there were only 8 players in the class who had a bigger jump in the final on 300 than Taron Francis, who went from number 212 to number 89. And actually, as I look at it, Taron Francis might have been the biggest leap as far as just the number outside of the top 2 guys in the class, which were Hayden Lowe, who went from 284 to 27, and Dramood Odoms went from 233 to 43. He went up 200 spots almost. But Taron Francis went from 212 to 89 in the final rankings from on 3. So another Louisiana receiver worth keeping an eye on. Okay, that'll do it for us here on today's bonus coverage of Locked on LSU. Hey, Locked on LSU. Hey, do us a favor. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.